Regarding Ashaya, spiritual aspirants should remember that they will have to become completely dedicated to their ideology or adarsha. More important than this is that they will have to become dedicated to their Ishta. They will have to establish a relationship of exclusive devotion to Ishta. If there is not intense attachment to one's Ishta in one's heart, then one cannot do anything. Thus, during sadhana you should think that as you are thinking of Parama Puruśa, he is also thinking of you. This is the proper devotion to one's Ishta. When people do something exclusively for themselves, their mental tendency is called ashakti or attachment. And when they do something not for their personal satisfaction, but for the pleasure of Parama Puruśa, their mental tendency is called bhakti or devotion. Parama Prema Svarupa, whatever the Lord does, he does for the welfare of his created beings, and not for his own interest. He is inexplicable, no language can properly explain him. The microcosms, on the other hand, have limited intellect. They are goaded into action by trivial self-interest. Once a certain gentleman, a businessman, was asked to laugh. He said, I am ready to laugh, provided it brings me some profit. Without considering the profit and loss of an action, he could not act, but such a question does not arise in the case of Parama Puruśa. Whatever he does for the welfare of all creatures. He is inexplicable also, but the ways and behavior of microcosms can be explained. Regarding any individual, we can say that he or she is such and such type of person. She is very frugal, he is good-hearted, but sharp-tongued, etc. An old definition of verse is vakyam rasatmakam kavyam. When a story is narrated in a lucid manner, it is called kavya or poetic verse. Who is a poet? One who knows all the three phases of time, past, present, and future. In the modern age, the Sanskrit word kavi is translated as poet in English, but in Old Sanskrit the word did not necessarily mean a poet. It meant a self-realized person. In older days, the scriptures or shastras were divided into several categories. Shasanat tarayet yastu saha shastraha parikirtitaha. That which leads to human welfare through a system of discipline is called shastra. That is, the books which lay down certain guidelines as to what actions should or should not be done, which actions are conducive to human progress, and which lead to degradation are called shastra. They are divided into four categories: kavya verse, Purana mythology, itihasa educative history, and itikata history. Itikata or history means the recording of chronological events, that is, the maintenance of a record of events as they took place in succession. And itihasa means the portion of itikata or history which has some specific educative value. It has no English synonym. Hence all history or itikata is not itihasa. When we refer to the history of India, it means the itikata, not itihasa of India. Now, the definition of itihasa is Dharmartha kama mokshartam niti vakya shaman vitam pura vritta kata yuktam itihasaha prashakshayate. That which leads to the attainment of dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, psychospiritual, psychic, physical, and spiritual attainment, respectively. That which leads to the attainment of a deep sense of morality is called itihasa. Iti hasati ityarte itihasa. Judged in this light, the Mahabharata can be called itihasa. What is taught in schools and colleges these days in the name of itihasa should not be called thus. Rather, it should be called itikata, itivritta purakata, or puravritta. What is Purana or mythology? In Purana, the narrative event is not factually accurate, but contains a good deal of educative value. The Ramayana is such a Purana because it contains much material to educate the people. The great Vyasadeva composed the Puranas in order to demonstrate that doing good to others brings victory, and doing harm to others brings defeat. Parupakaraha punyaya papaya parapiranam. Vyasadeva wrote something about the inexplicable nature of the Lord. While describing Parama Puruśa, who transcends words, a great deal of verbal explanation has been made of the different occasions. For example, there are some descriptions regarding his extraordinary loveliness, apparel, ornaments, etc., but these are not at all proper because he is beyond description. It is not possible to write something about an entity who is indescribable. So at the end of the shloka, the author begged Parama Puruśa for forgiveness. Rupam rupa vivara itasya bhavatu yadyanena kalpitam stutya nirvashani yatta kilo guru durikrita yanmaya vyapita vamancha nirakritam bhagavato yatirtaya tradina Shantavyam yagadishu tadvikala tadosha trayamat kritam. You are the formless entity, yet I have committed the error of describing your form. This was my first offense. You are a non-attributional entity, and yet I have tried to describe your attributes, your infinite compassion, for you are the embodiment of grace. This is my second offense. I know you are omnipotent, and even so I have extolled the glories of certain places of pilgrimage, and thus I have limited your all-pervasiveness. I have described the merit one acquires by visiting certain places of pilgrimage, by bathing in holy rivers, by performing various sacrifices, charities and rituals. This is my third offense. O Parama Puruśa, I have committed this mistake knowingly, and hence I beg your forgiveness. The Supreme Entity is Anirvashaniyaha, Parama Prema Svarupa, that is, he is indescribable, no words can describe him, whereas living beings can easily be described by words. Everything concerned with Parama Puruśa is infinite, whereas living beings are all finite. Then what should the microcosm do to attain Parama Puruśa? They must meditate on him, and in this process they will one day attain the infinite love themselves. Regarding Parama Puruśa, the scriptures say, Sahasrara hirsha purushaha sahasrakshaha sahasrapat sa bhumim vishvato vritva tyasti shada shangulam. Rigveda Purushuktam. Human beings perform actions with a limited mind, whereas Parama Puruśa performs actions with his infinite mind. Thus human beings can never compare themselves to him. Human beings read a few books and, puffed up with vanity of knowledge, say, Can you show us where Parama Puruśa is? Now the question is, do they have the proper vision to visualize him? If you tell a blind person to describe the parts of an elephant's body, can he do it? Before describing the elephant, one must have the vision to see it. So first the blind man's sight must be restored. Human beings see with two eyes, and both eyes are in front. Of course, if they had one eye in front and one in the back, that would also serve the purposes. But fortunately or unfortunately, both eyes are in front, and so they cannot see what is happening behind their backs. Whereas Parama Puruśa is seeing everything with his infinite number of eyes. He knows even what human beings do secretly of or think inwardly. He is Sahasrapat with 1,000 feet. Human beings are limited by time, space and person. Suppose you are at Nagpur. You are thinking, had this town of Nagpur been very closely to Hyderabad, I could have got my work done more easily. But Parama Puruśa faces no such difficulty. He does not need to move from one place to another. Suppose someone has his or her master's degree in geography. If that degree holder is asked, Can you say how many houses are there in Nagpur city? How many bricks are there in those houses? I am sure he or she cannot answer those questions. I have yet to meet a Pandit who can tell me how many bricks are in the town of Nagpur. Human knowledge is very limited, very imperfect. Hence it is totally pointless to pride oneself on so-called intellectual knowledge or pedantry. In fact, human beings have nothing to be proud of except one thing, and that is Parama Puruśa. What type of pride is this? Human beings can think, a perfect entity like Parama Puruśa is my father. I am his dear affectionate child. This sort of vanity and pride can be harbored. But beside these, human beings have no other treasure of which to feel proud. Human beings can at most remember events which took place only a couple of days ago. Often they are quite ignorant of what will happen just after 1 second. Mostly they say something or perform some actions on the basis of assumptions, but Parama Puruśa is omniscient. Everything past, present and future is at his fingertips. But the knowledge of living beings is very limited. If those of you who have acquired the highest university degree are asked to sit for examination right now, perhaps none of you will pass the exam. And if you're asked to answer the same questions which were given to you when you passed from the university, you will certainly not be able to answer them, for you have completely forgotten the topics which you studied in the past. In such a situation, human beings be proud of their intellect. Yet they are often misguided by a false sense of superiority or inferiority. Suppose there is a master's degree holder in a certain village, and in that village no one else knows even ABCD. If you visit his village, you will find that so-called educated person, because of his vanity and false sense of superiority, does not even talk to the illiterate villagers, if he is ashamed to speak to his old friends. In this way, human beings develop meaningless ideas of big and small, high and low. They lose their universal vision. But for Parama Puruśa, there is no difference between educated and uneducated, literate and illiterate, high and low, black and white. Human beings always discriminate between those who are socially high and low. They disdain the low and prefer the highborn. This sense of discrimination exists only among living beings. Parama Puruśa always remains with people in their joys and sorrows. A virtuous person who, when in trouble, says to Parama Puruśa, O Lord, save me. Similarly, a thoroughly wicked person also says, O Lord, save me. Parama Puruśa listens equally to both of them. In this regard, I have already said that Parama Puruśa cannot do two things. First, he cannot create another Parama Puruśa like himself. He can create everything, but he cannot create a second Parama Puruśa. Secondly, he cannot hate anyone, even if he wants to. But human beings commit the mistake of hating others easily. So in this respect, human beings are ahead of Parama Puruśa, that they can hate others. Those who are seated in heaven are as dear to Parama Puruśa as those who are ensconced in hell, scorched in eternal hell fire. Even for those infernal creatures, Parama Puruśa has unbounded love and affection. Even such people are not helpless. Their piteous wailing reach his ears, and accordingly he takes steps to help them. But this is not the case for human beings. Rather, even at the sight of the sorrows and sufferings of afflicted people, they will say, Well done, as you sow, so you reap. Those people are reaping the consequences of their past misdeeds. In the human mind there is an ingrained sense of hatred for others, but there is no such feeling in the mind of Parama Puruśa. Parama Puruśa is the all-controlling entity. No one else can dictate to him. This is the mere difference between Jiva and Shiva. In spite of such a serious difference, Parama Puruśa loves human beings and showers his grace on them, and out of his infinite love for them, he has given them a valuable treasure, mind. The characteristic of this mind is that as it thinks, so it becomes. Hence, if they so desire, human beings can merge their individual minds in the macrocosmic mind. While taking the ideation of Parama Puruśa, human minds will one day become identified with him, and one auspicious moment all the inherent qualities of Parama Puruśa will be infused in their unit minds. Brahmavid Brahmaeva Bhavati. One who knows Brahma becomes Brahma. And I have already said that there cannot be two Parama Puruśas, so in the last stage of evolution, the living beings become completely identified with Parama Puruśa, and then only the microcosms will be fully established in their infinite, blissful cosmic stance. 17th November 1971, DMC, Nagpur.